this next process that I'm going to show you is how to do a Pearson's correlation coefficient using Excel. So if you can't remember what Pearson's correlation coefficient, it was back when we did statistics. Remember on your GDC you found a number called R. So you can see if you've got a strong positive correlation, then R is pretty close to 1. So like really weak ones would be something like R is between 0.1 and 0.5, and no correlation is kind of like between 0 and -1 and 0.1, sorry. Negative correlation is when you have kind of negative values for your R, so it's going down. So if you get a negative R, it means it's a negative correlation, and you can use this page, which is page 321 from your textbook, as a guide to look back on to decide what kind of correlation you have. Rightio, so to start with, you're going to find a Pearson's correlation coefficient, and I'm going to start off by doing it for GDP per capita and carbon dioxide per capita. So I'm going to copy the raw data for these two over into a new sheet. So select it like this. Now I just go Control C, create a new sheet, Control V. So here's my two columns. So GDP per capita is like my x-axis, carbon dioxide emissions is like my y-axis. So a quick way to find the Pearsons, I suggest go over like maybe to column J, because you're going to need these columns in between to do your worked process. So maybe go over to column J and type in Pearson. And then over in column K, you can calculate what the final answer should be. So you can go equals, and it's Pearson's correlation coefficient, so start to type in PEA, and you'll see Pearson comes up. So you need to double click on the word Pearson. So let's double click on that. And now it's asking us for array 1, which means column 1, comma, array 2. So array 1 is your GDP per capita, so don't include the words, just select all the numbers. So this, you're just telling Excel that that's your first column. Then it asks you to put in a little comma, so type comma. And then array 2, go back up to the top, select the numbers, and go down to the bottom. So see, everything's looking good here. I just need to close my brackets. So close my brackets, press enter, and if you go up to the top, your Pearson value should be there. So it's turning out my Pearson value to 3 sig figs would be 0.82, and do I need to round the 6 up or not? Yes, I do, because next to the 6 is a 9, so I need to round that up to 0.827. Let's have a quick look at the textbook to decide what kind of correlation it is. Obviously it's positive because we've got a positive value. So if you look at the table back from page 321, what was it again? I've forgotten what I got already. 0.827. 0.827, is it here? No, it's not there. It's within the moderate positive correlation kind of bracket. So you can always look to see, does your answer make sense? Moderate positive correlation. So to do that, let's see what our graph would have looked like. So I'll look back at the scatter graph we made. Yeah, that looks like a moderate positive correlation between GDP and carbon dioxide. So that could make sense, that we could get a positive moderate correlation of 0.827. So now I've got to show you the process of how to do this by hand. So I would at this point save it, because this is very useful, because we're going to work this out by hand now, but it's really helpful to know what the final answer is supposed to be, because working it out by hand is quite tough. So to work it out by hand, there is an example in the textbook, and I've just taken a snip of it. So notice our X is our first column, so for me GDP per capita. Our Y is our Y column, so for me it's carbon dioxide emissions. So we've already got these results in our table, as you can see, they're here and here. So now what we've got to include are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other columns. So 5 other columns in order to calculate these 3 numbers. And these 3 numbers end up going into this big equation, just like this. The 14 goes on the top, the 10 and the 20 go inside a square root, and you just calculate the answer. And that answer should end up being what your Pearson's here is. So I should end up getting 0.827. So let's start to form these columns. Okay, what's the wrong one? Let's form these columns. So we need x minus x squared, and let's put in little headings. I'm just going to be lazy and kind of write them out like this. And then in my Word document, I would type these up properly. But for now, just to demonstrate what we're doing, I might just copy and paste them in here. And let's squash them up a bit. So see, I can put them up in here. So obviously I'm going to need to stretch this column out a bit to fit in that title. And maybe just let's adjust that one a little bit. So F needs to go out to here, and G, you see, needs to go out to here. I'm just lining up the columns with the headings we've got. That's a little bit off. Let's fix that up. That's a little bit off. Okay, that's a bit better. So these are our headings. And notice what we've got here is x minus the mean of x. So we've got to actually calculate what our mean is first of all. So our mean x is a very important number. So to calculate your mean of x, this is our x data, go equals average, AVE, and then double click on the word average, which is the second one down, because the mean is like the average. So double click on there, and it wants us to select that data. So don't select the title, just select that data, and close the bracket, enter. So that's our mean x. That's going to be a very useful number for us soon. Let's find our mean y now. So same thing, just go equals AVE for average, double click on the second one down for average, and because it's the mean of y, let's just select the y numbers this time. So y numbers, close the brackets, and there is our mean of y, like it's a big number, as you can see. Okay, now what's next? All right, so now we're going to do x minus the mean of x. So there's something important here to do. Here we need to make a formula. So we'll go equals and click on the cell that contains your x, and it's GDP per capita. So click on that cell, type in the minus button, so I just press minus, and then see the mean of x is over here. But there's something special in that. You've got to do something to this K4. I need to put a $ in front of the K. So type in a $ in front of the K, and a $ in front of the 4. And what that does is that locks in this number. I'll just do that again in case you missed it. So we go equals x minus the mean of x, which is over here. But to lock, we need this number to lock. So as in, like, we want to say this number exactly every time. So we've got to put a $ in front of the K and a $ in front of the 4. You don't put $ in the first number because we want the x to change. But we always want this number minus that exact number. This number minus that number. This number minus that number. And then once you've done that, press enter. So that makes sense because 962 minus that mean does give you this answer. And rather than do that like 50 times, if you just highlight the cell and go down to sort of the bottom right hand corner until it becomes a cross. So see, it was a big fat cross, now it becomes a little skinny cross. Click and drag it down. So let's click and drag it down. There you go, down to the bottom. Make sure you do go to the bottom. There it is. So it's done it for all of these. This minus the mean is that. This minus the mean is that. And so on. Now we've got to do the same but with y. So we're going to do the y value minus the mean of y. So when you do a formula, you always go equals, click on your y value, don't click on your x, minus, type in minus, the mean of y. So let's click on the mean of y, and we've got to lock that number so that we're always subtracting that exact number by putting a $ in front of the k and click a $ in front of the 5, just like that. So B2 minus K, $K, $5, and press enter. That makes sense because 0.034 something minus 5 something will give you a negative number like negative 5.4. So again, let's highlight our cell and let's just make the fat cross, go to the bottom right corner, it becomes a skinny cross. Then you click and drag it down and we'll work it out for all of your cells down there. Lovely. So that was a lot of work. Now this part's a little bit easier. Notice the x minus the mean of x you've got in column C. The y minus the mean of y you've got in column D. And these brackets together mean you're just multiplying them together. So to multiply these two together, it's really easy. Again, it's a formula, so click equals, select your cell C, and then to do the multiply sign, it's the star. So you go Shift 8 to create the star. That means multiply. and this thing gets multiplied by column D. And then press, once you've got C2 multiplied by D2, press enter. And like before, select the box, go to the bottom right corner and drag down. It's going to work it all out for you. I know this is a long process, but you do need to show one of these worked out by hand. Once you've shown one worked out by hand, you don't have to work out your other one by hand. Right, so x minus the mean of x all squared. See, we've got x minus the mean of x. They just want you to square that answer, which means multiply by itself. So it's a formula again to square. So go equals, select x minus the mean of x, which is over here, x minus the mean of x. And to do a square, you do a little upward arrow, which is shift 6, and then 2. So that means this thing squared, upward arrow and 2. And press enter again. And go to the bottom right corner. Just make sure you've selected the right cells, like make sure you selected the x when you need to select the x and not the y. So you can always check. C2, yep, C2, that is my x. Okay, so then go to the bottom right corner, scroll it down. There they all are. And we're on our last column now, which is y minus y squared. Similar to this was x minus mean of x squared. This is y minus mean of y squared. And you've got, oops, let's just undo that. You've got y minus the mean of y over here. So let's go equals, click on your y minus the mean of y, and they want us to square it. So just before, like how you squared the x one, you go upward arrow, which is shift 6, and 2 to say that you're squaring it. And just check, is D to the right column? Yep, that's got y minus mean of y. So press enter, hover. So if you click on the cell first, hover, and go down to the bottom right, and scroll down. So I would click save at this point because you've done a lot of good work. We're almost there. We've just got to work out a few more things to get that 0.827. And what things are they? Let's look at the Word document I had. So notice what we've got to get is we need these 3 numbers. So these 3 numbers are the totals of the column. They're basically the sum. If you added these 4 numbers, you get 14. Add them, you get 10. Add these, you get 20. There's a really easy way in Excel to get these sums. And these 4 numbers go here, here, and here to calculate your Pearsons. So let's go to Excel to do our sums. So scroll down to the bottom column, bottom row, sorry. So 51, let's go down to row 52. Maybe make it bold, just so you remember that these are going to be your sums. So to work out the totals of each column, it's really easy. And to be honest, we only need these 3, because in the Word doc, they just use these 3 down here. So you can work them all out if you want, but I'm just going to work them out for these last 3. So to work out the sum, you click in the cell below the column you want and go equal SUM. So because we're calculating the sum of that total column, and double click on sum, and now it's asking you to just select the numbers you want to find the sum of. So it's this column here, so don't select the title, of course, and then just go down to the bottom number. Don't forget to close your brackets and press enter. So that's nice to know, that's the sum down here. You might want to write SUM or total. Might be good, just so you remember what these things are. And rather than have to do that again for this number and this number, you can click here and go to the bottom right, and you can actually scroll across. If you scroll across, that's going to find those sums for you. And I'm going to make that red maybe, just so I never forget that they're special, they're the sums. I might also put borders around my table, because at some point you're probably going to paste this into a Word doc and see how it's got nice borders now. It looks a bit more like a table. Here it is. And these are the 3 numbers that you will need to put into your equation to work out your Pearsons. And as you can see here, this number here goes on the top of the fraction, this number goes, and that number multiplied together go in the square root on the bottom of the fraction. Okay, so how would we type that into Word? Let's just open a new Word document and I'll show you. Or I can just show you below, can't I? Let's just do it down here. Oops. There we go. So let's do this down here. So it's basically going to be this equation here. So I'll just snip it. But in your IA, I would suggest you type it up yourself. It just looks fancier than a snip. And now we're going to do this part here, 14 over square root of 10 times 20. So to start to make a fraction in Word, you go Insert and go over to Equation. Don't click on the arrow, click on the pi, Insert, Fraction, and select the first one. See, that's made your nice number there. And now we need to paste in the number on the top, and notice it's the third from the right sum. So the third from the right sum, oops, if that happens, just undo. Okay, so the third from the right sum is, you can see it's 4450 to start with, so let's type it in, 4450. It's actually better to type it manually. 252, 252, 4450, 252, 0.455. That will do. We've got the unrounded answer for now. And in the bottom, we'll go the other two numbers multiplied together in a square root. So click in the box. To make a square root, you're in Insert Equation again, and see it's a radical. So let's make a square root. And the number that needs to go in there is that number there. So our number is, big number, 1378853. What's that? 1378853. Just check what we've got so far. 1378853. 1657. Let's put that in there. 1657. Really make sure to check yours out. Make sure you're doing it right. And is there any other numbers in there? No, there's not. So that'll do. That's a nice whole number. Multiplied by this number. So to do the multiply sign, I'll just see up in here. If you're in Insert Equation, you should be able to hopefully see the multiply sign. There it is. It's better than using X. And now we need to type in the other number, 100 point. Did I do a comma by mistake? Yep, I did. 0.283. So 283 655. Sorry, so that's 665. Let's check that. 665. Nicely, and yours is supposed to equal what your Pearsons is. So your Pearsons is 0.827. So we know that it's supposed to equal 0.827, so I'd suggest put in 0.827. And then let's just check that these numbers do actually give you that. So there is a way that you can check it on Excel. Let's just check it out down here. So maybe go down a bit. So let's check, does it equal that? So we've got equals. So remember that number is meant to be on the top of the fraction. Equals that number divided by, so do forward slash to do divide by. And to do square root, type in SQ and you'll see the top one. SQRT means the square root of, and it's this number multiplied by that number. So I'm just working it out again. See, it's that number divided by the square root of that times that. Lovely, and see that's our number, that's our Pearson, that's 0.827. So the good thing is, you know you do get the exact same number as what's up here. So you know that these totals are all good to go. I would definitely suggest save what you've got so far. So you might want to call that Pearson. So when you look back at this, you'll remember what you did. Pearson check. Maybe just stretch that out a bit. So Pearson check. And these are good to have up here so you know it's the same value. Okay, I know that looks weird, so maybe you want to get rid of that. Okie dokie. So at some point you'll need to copy and paste this whole table, and the working out you've got here is part of your work process. But you want to type it up a lot better than this, and you want to kind of explain what you're doing a bit more. And what's nice is you've shown your work process by hand, and you'll notice this one was for GDP per capita and CO2. So let's rename this. So right click on sheet 2, rename. Let's just call it Pearson 1. Pearson 1. So when you look back, you'll realize where your Pearson work is. See what you've done. We've now got to do a Pearson for the other two things, GDP per capita and sulfur dioxide. So let's copy our GDP per capita. Let's copy our, I just press Control to select them both. Control C, and let's put them over into a new sheet. Control V. So here's my X GDP per capita, here's my Y. You don't need to do the work process again, but you just need to do one using the Excel PEA formula. So just go, like we did at the beginning of the other one, go equal PEA Pearson. And remember, it wants you to select array 1, so column 1, just the numbers, and then press comma, then go back up and select array 2, which is your Y data. Close the brackets, press enter. Here you go. So this time we've got a Pearsons result, a different one because we've got different data for this one. So the Pearsons results for GDP per capita and sulfur dioxide emissions is 0.344. If you look at the diagrams, again, page 321, 0.344, it's positive, so it's on this side, it's not a negative. 0.344 is a weak positive correlation. So I would then comment on that and say what it was, that it's a weak positive correlation. Double check with your graphs as well. Scatter 2. Yeah, that looks like a weak positive correlation, so it does match. See, that's GDP per capita and sulfur dioxide. So go back to there, maybe save what you've done. And this to 3 sig figs, you might want to write out to 0.344 to 3 sig figs. It's up to you what you round it to, really. And so when you look back in your sheet later on, you might completely forget what you've done. So don't click delete, click rename. Let's just call this Pearson 2. So naming your sheets can be useful. So see, I've noticed I've named mine scatter 1, scatter graph 2, raw data for the original one, mean and median, Pearson 1 and Pearson 2. And that is how you find the Pearson. Only one process, as I said, needs to be shown by hand. The other one you can do completely with Excel, and this is the way you do it.